In this lecture, we're going to begin our exploration of cell physiology. And when we think about the cell, it is considered to be the basic unit of life. And it's been estimated that there are approximately 10 to the power of 13 cells in the human body. And cells carry out a wide range of functions, but overall, we can say the purpose of cells is that these units serve as the vehicle for passing hereditary information in order for a particular species to survive. There are some key elements that are core to all cells. DNA, also referred to as which is deoxyribonucleic acid. This is the macromolecule that provides the genetic code for the cell, and this genetic code provides the plan that dictates the characteristics of a cell. It also is responsible for dictating how a particular cell will respond to stress. And so some examples of short-term and long-term stressors to a cell include activation through exercise, food, drugs, and various toxins. And the key element to DNA is that it ensures the replication and survival of the species. What we're looking at here on this slide are three different images, enhanced images of cells. We see these filamentous fungal cells in the top left-hand corner. What we're looking at here is a red blood cell and a platelet. And presumably this is a white blood cell. And at the bottom of the slide, we see a human oocyte or egg and sperm cells. When viewing these cells under a microscope, it's also critically important to take note of the scale. So although the images may suggest these cells are all the same size, we have to consider the scale that accompanies these particular images. And so the term cyto and the term cyte are terms that make references to cells. And so cyto is a prefix that indicates cell, as well as the suffix cyte, such as myocyte, which refers to a muscle cell. Just some examples here that this unit will speak to periodically include items such as the cytosol, and this refers to the aqueous medium inside a cell and outside of the nucleus inside that cell. The cytoplasm is that aqueous medium, which is the cytosol, as well as all the organelles contained within that cytosol. The cytoskeleton, which is what this unit will address, refers to a collection of proteins that provide structural support to a cell, and something that is cytotoxic is something that is potentially damaging to a cell. We also see the suffix cyte, which also makes reference to a cell, and so the erythrocyte is the scientific term for a red blood cell, as the leukocyte is the scientific term for a white blood cell. And as highlighted on the previous slide in the image, the oocyte is a human egg cell. There are different cell types. The first type here is what we call the eukaryote or the eukaryotic cell. And these are the cells of the human organism. These cells are defined by the genetic information in the form of DNA that is kept within a closed compartment. That closed compartment is the nucleus. The eukaryotic cells are relatively large and do vary considerably in size, as this course will examine. Some of the key elements to the eukaryotic cell that we will explore include the nucleus, the cytoplasm, and mitochondria. What you're viewing here on the bottom left-hand corner of the slide is an image from this research paper published in 1999, and these are brain neurons, specifically neurons housed within the hippocampus of the brain, that were cultured and seeded onto a computer circuit board, indicating that there are a number of different ways to investigate the function of various human cells. The other type of cell is the prokaryotic cell, or simply referred to as prokaryotes. These are single-celled organisms that do not have a distinct nuclear compartment, and these include bacteria and archaea. And archaea are single-celled organisms that typically reside within hostile environments on Earth, such as hot springs. Prokaryotes are typically small, and they exist individually and function on an individual basis, as opposed to the eukaryotic cell, which exists in connection to other eukaryotic cells, such as brain cells. Neurons, for example, do not exist individually, but function collectively to form the brain. The prokaryotes are typically a few microns in size, and although do not have a nucleus, do contain genetic information in the form of DNA, RNA, and do not have the same sort of cell membrane as the eukaryotic cell, but are defined by a cell wall. And on this image, this is a computer-enhanced image of E. coli bacterium. Just another example here of prokaryotic cells. The image on the right-hand side is an enhanced electronic micrograph of Clostridium difficile. This is a bacterium that is responsible for a gastrointestinal distress when a person becomes infected with this bacterium. And this bacterium is responsible for a wide range of signs and symptoms, and in some cases, the inflammation caused by these bacteria can be life-threatening in the large intestine or the colon. And the mechanism in which the inflammation is caused is through the release of toxins by this bacteria. People that are typically susceptible to C. difficile infections include older adults, particularly older adults within hospitals and long-term care facilities, because the mode of transmission is from person to person. And very often, healthcare workers are the medium for which this bacteria does transfer from person to person. One of the problems with this bacteria is that these bacteria are particularly resistant to modern day antibiotics. And because the human large intestine houses, in some estimates, up to 500 different species of bacteria that contributes to human health, C. difficile infections will often override those bacteria, and treating this infection with antibiotics will not only not impact C. difficile bacteria, but will actually kill off the natural bacteria that exists within the human digestive system. So a common treatment for people afflicted and infected with C. difficile infections include what's called a fecal transplant, where feces from a healthy individual is transplanted into the large intestine of an infected person. What that does is that transplants a new colony, large colonies of healthy bacteria that are effective at neutralizing the C. difficile bacteria. And that is a treatment that carries a cure rate of well over 90%. The remaining part of this unit will address the eukaryotic cell, and we'll focus on a wide range of different organelles and structures that are very important in understanding cell physiology. We'll specifically focus on elements such as the nucleus. We'll discuss ribosomes, the endoplasmic reticulum. The cell membrane is a very key functional component to the cell. We will also address the importance of the mitochondria in defining human cells as being aerobic in nature. And of course, we'll discuss the cytoplasm. So this completes our first lecture on cell physiology.